Hello everybody, my name is Average Election Enjoyer. Today on November 9th of 2025, and today is going to be the second of a series of promised videos that I said I'd do that go over a lot of these elections that we saw on November 4th. This video I'm going to be breaking down Prop 50, which is definitely the election that hit close to home, as California is in fact my home state. So I wanted to make sure that I could get a video out on it, showing a little bit of bias on my part, as I'm very interested in these results. But the other elections are going to be coming out in the next couple of days, so if you have an election that you do want to see, do not fret. This will not be the final video of this sort of series. Today, as I said, I want to talk about Prop 50. If you need a little refresher on Prop 50, Prop 50 is a either gerrymandering or redistricting effort, sorry about that, depending on who you hear it from, whether right or left. The intention of it, it was put forth by a California legislator to gerrymander 5 Republican seats, and the reasoning behind this was Texas earlier this year, if you remember, with this whole redistricting war. If you need a refresher on that, watch my video on it it was maybe a month and a half ago. And in that redistricting war, to start it off, Texas would gerrymander, or at least attempt to gerrymander 5 Democrats out of their seats. We'll see how that is looking later on. It's looking like maybe one of the Democrats might be able to maintain their seat down in southern Texas, but it's yet to be seen. More conservative Democrat, more palatable for the area. He sort of have a case going on right now, and if he's able to win that case, then he should be somewhat favored to keep on serving as his constituents' representative to Congress. Anyways, so this proposition served as a way for California to attempt to even the score, as Democrats might say. Republicans put forth a lot of lawsuits challenging Prop 50. However, because Prop 50 was in fact voted on by the voters, gives it a lot more legitimacy, makes it hard to sort of overrule, considering a lot of other states are simply ramming redistricting through their state legislators. So a lot of people, including me, agree that it would take a miracle for this proposition to sort of have to get struck down by any sort of court. But that's besides the point, as I am average election enjoyer, not average court enjoyer, average legal battle enjoyer. I am average election enjoyer. So we're gonna get on to the actual part of the video many of you guys clicked on to watch. In the beginning of this proposition, you might remember there was a lot of sort of resistance by the local Republican parties and the California Republican Party. A lot of people were wondering if they're going to be able to sway a lot of Democrats into voting for this proposition. Plot twist. I mean, obviously, as you can see the result, Democrats certainly did a good job convincing their base to come out. But when we look at the exit polls later, you'll see that Democrats did actually an exceptional job at getting Democrats to vote yes on this proposition. As we can see here, it ended 6.5 million to 3.6 million. Not ended, 80% estimated vote, and it's expected to lean more towards the yes column. So Democrats, even though Democrats wanted yes, Republicans wanted no, Democrats are supposed to sort of gain even more of an advantage than they have. This is about 30-point advantage here, gonna go up. It's expected to go up here, and we can sort of see why that is. We can see San Bernardino. So a couple flips here that I want to point out: San Bernardino, Riverside. When I compare it to the 2024 map, which I'll do right now, this is, as you can see, 2024 results, also from NBC. Just get out there. This is NBC information. We can see, compare the difference between these two maps. just wow. FYI, orange is yes, purple no, and just red is obviously Harris. Or sorry, red is Trump, blue is Harris. Just so you can keep that in mind, that orange color would equal blue, and that purple color would equal red in this the latest in this sort of iteration of the interactive map here. And if we want to see, Northern California does somewhat look the same here. And if we look here, Del Norte 5842, 5648. So actually, overperformance here so far with 80% of the votes in. We can see the Republicans did fairly well here in a lot of these Northern California counties up here. Democrats doing about the same as they did in 2020. Only 50%, and we can't actually say it with that county. 64% in a lot of these upper Northern California counties hasn't gotten all their votes in. Let's see, 64. So yeah, you can see that Republicans did fairly well in this Northern California area. However, as we go down into the southern part of the state, this is where we see a major Republican collapse here in a lot of these counties. You can see here, if you notice, that Riverside and San Bernardino and Imperial are all actually red in this map. They all voted for Trump, even though they were close elections. San Bernardino was only 2 points. Riverside was even closer, 1.3 points, and then Imperial less than like 0.8 points there. So all these were close counties. All these end up flipping and ended up voting yes by substantial margins. We got 16 points to San Bernardino with 80% in, 16 points in, or 13 points in Riverside, sorry, with 80% in as well, and then 58.6 in. We also got nearly 20-point margin in this county. So you can see huge difference here from 2024 in these three counties. They changed by nearly. So this one was about 18 points, then we got 16 or 15 points, and then this one exchanged over 20 points so far with, as I said, 58% of the votes in. So you can see a huge shift here in Southern California to the left in these Riverside, San Bernardino areas. And in Los Angeles, you can see big overperformance in Los Angeles here. This is a huge vote sink, 1.7 million votes saying yes here from Los Angeles. This might not be a surprise, Los Angeles. If you watch the news or been looking at all these protests that have been happening in Los Angeles, you'll know that the Republican Party and Trump and anything to do with the right is not particularly popular at the moment here in the Los Angeles area, and this extends into some might call these Los Angeles suburbs, but these are over an hour and a half away from Los Angeles in some of these parts of these counties. So I will not be saying that, but these are SoCal areas, and you can see a lot of vote sink here coming in for the Democrats in these lower Southern California counties here, going up to Ventura County. Again, another overperformance, 5-point overperformance from Harris to the yes on the measure. Santa Barbara 65-34. If we go over here to Santa Barbara, 61-35. So you can see that Republicans actually did fairly well up here in Northern California. They actually ended up doing, at least not all the votes are in, but they actually, we could see in I'm gonna butcher this, Siskiyou County. Sorry about that to anyone who lives there. I apologize for that pronunciation. 62. Well, Trump actually did underperform in this county as all the votes are coming in. So maybe it's possible that with some of these counties, this one has 80 and this one is a little bit of an influence, but it's possible as the votes start coming in, Democrats might start doing better in some of these counties over here. But as you can see, Republicans actually holding pretty firmly over here in Northern California, but this is just a collapse over down here in the south, with Los Angeles shifting really far. That's a big vote sink. San Bernardino, Riverside, Imperial, all having huge flips to vote yes and really push this proposition through. And you can see this is a pretty good vote sink for Republicans here. 100,000 votes out of Kern County. But if we go over here, 60 to 30 versus 55-45. So even in the Republican counties here, that was nearly that went from about 60-40, so 20 points, to 55-44, which allowed 11 points, 10 points. You can see that it nearly cut the margins in half in this county. So you could see that there was a real sort of collapse here in 63, 68. You can see a real overperformance in a lot of these Democratic counties, especially here in the south of California. And even if we go into Sacramento, I'm sure, yeah, you can see even overperformance all the way up to here. So, story of the day: Northern California Republican counties were the only counties that actually sort of stayed near where their 2024 margins in. Anywhere down from here, all these counties ended up shifting leftward. And then now I want to move into one of the what I saw was one of the more interesting parts of this election. Let me click on exit polls here. Just some of the more interesting. I like looking at these exit polls, and I thought we could find some important information from here. First of all, do you want to go to this section? If you guys remember, in 2024, there was a big movement within the Democratic Party. You saw the Lincoln Project, Republicans Against Trump, all these sorts of organizations coming out trying to say country over party, trying to sway these Republican voters over from voting for Trump, of course. There's been somewhat of a anti-Trump movement within the Republican Party ever since 2016, but 2024 was where they were trying to turn out some Republicans against Trump to not vote for they were trying to get people to turn out against Trump just purely on principle of I'm sure you know the arguments against him. I'm not going to get into that on this video, of course. As you can see, but in 2024, this did not work. 95% of Democrats, of course, voted for Harris, only 4% for Trump, but only 5% of Republicans would end up turning out for Harris versus 94 voting for Trump. And you can see that Democrats, even though they had an edge in the independent column as well, Republicans with the 35% turnout beating the Democrats only at 31%, that was enough to win this election. This was in fact a close election. A lot of people some claim it as a mandate. This was a fairly close election, ended by less than ended under 2 points in terms of national vote share. In fact, we can go up and figure that out if we want to see this. As I said, 48%, 49, so only 1.5% difference in the popular vote separating. So not nearly the crushing that some might want you to believe. As I say here, so this movement did not materialize at all in this election. However, and this is something that you can see in New Jersey, something you can see in Virginia. New York is a special sort of case because there's a big independent. But if you look at a lot of these 2025 elections, you'll see a certain trend. Now, if we come over here to, no matter how you voted today, these are the exit polls, of course. For Prop 50, you see, of course, Democrats hold the big margin here, and especially independents, you'll see they crushed. The independents voted 14 points for yes, but you can see here Democrats 96 to 4%. So exactly this. Not the exact same. Almost the same. There's more of a third party poll. There's no third party in this election here, naturally, as it is a yes or no question. 95 to 4. percent versus 96 to 4%. So about the same. However, you look at the Republicans, 13% to 87%. Now, that might not seem like a huge shift. However, 5 to 13, that is over double the total of Republicans voting for yes as compared to Republicans voting for Harris. So, if you wanted to look for a movement of Republicans who are voting against their party and, as Democrats might say, for country, or as they might say as well, for country, this is where you can actually see it materializing. In fact, I decided to sort of further prove this point. I pulled up the New Jersey and Virginia exit polls here, and we can see this trend continuing. So here in the New Jersey governor's race, Democrats, of course, holding a substantial turnout lead, contributed to their great victory there. I'll make a video on this election later. But if you look here, Democrats, Republicans, 97 to 2%, a little bit of a third-party vote, but Republicans 7 to 92. Now, this might not seem like, again, the biggest difference, but when these trends are holding across all these different elections, again, 93 to 7 versus 99 to 1, you see a much more put together Democratic vote. You see Democrats voting for Democrats, but you don't see all Republicans voting for Republicans. This is small number though. Might seem like a small number, but 7%. If 2026, if this trend continues in any sort of way in 2026, Republicans are in huge trouble, because if you have even 3 or 4% more Republicans voting for the Democrats versus Democrats voting for Republicans, it's already supposed to be a better year for the Democrats because it's a midterm election. Democrats tend to do well in midterm elections. Also, Trump is a Republican. Trump is president. President's parties, the party who's in power tends to have off years in midterms. That is why you see Democrats might be talking about the redistricting. But again, if this trend shows up in any way in 2026, Republicans are going to have a huge problem. If you see 7%, anywhere from even 5% of Republicans, while if Democrats are as sturdy as they have been, 2-3% for the Republican Party, that's bad news for the Republicans. That's hundreds of thousands of voters in national elections. That could be, it depends on the percentages, but if the percentage stays at 7, maybe even grows 8-9%, that's maybe a million. That might be millions of voters across the nation that are going to be Republicans voting for Democrats. And especially if Democrats hold it, you can see they with the independents, that's a 19-point margin, 13-point margin here, and then again here in California you could see there it is, independent 49 to 46. Oh, this is 2024. You can see 57 to 43. That's a 14. So you saw 14, 13, 19 percent margins with the independents. Again, as we go back here to 2024, 95 to 4 and 94 to 5 with 49 to 46. These is huge swings from in all three of these states. Now, all three of these states are Democratic leaning states, of course, but Virginia had a Republican governor. Glenn Youngkin won in 2021. New Jersey, they had Jack Ciattarelli come within three points in their last election. So these, even though they're Democratic states, these have been close elections in the past. And if you go back to those elections, you'll see trends that are way more similar to these. However, now you see trends that are like this. 13% of Republicans, according to this exit poll, voted yes. That is a disaster for the Republican Party. Over 10%. If you got 10 Republicans in a room, one of them probably voted yes. If you got 10 Democrats in a room, then chances are you won't have any of them voting no. You'll have to. This is a huge deal if this sort of trend can continue into these future elections, and this would be a major disaster for Republicans. And this was a significantly contributing. I believe this is likely why you saw in Southern California Democrats do so well in Riverside County and San Bernardino and some of those lower southern counties, because Republicans were likely voting yes in those counties, and that helped flip those counties by huge margins. Here we could see, if we go to these on political issue here, we see it even more dramatic. If we go to, let's see here, very liberal and perfect. If we go to these measures, we can see in 2024, political matters, we got liberal 91-7, moderate 58-40, and then conservative 9-90. So you see that conservative voter base really sticking to Trump pretty well. You see, of course, you saw conservatives here, and you saw a lot of conservative voting versus those who consider us liberal, and that's why Trump was able to win the popular vote. A lot more people identified themselves as liberal across the nation at this time, even though Democrats won both of these two categories. If we go to California here, even though there's a majority for liberal and moderate and not a lot for conservatives, saw 14% of conservatives voting yes. That is up by quite a few points, even though this is state and this is national. You can't exactly compare apples to oranges here, but we're just looking at a sort of trend here. This was where the nation was at. And if we're going to go around and look at these three states, if we can look at all three of these states and they all showed similar results here in 2025, that's got to mean something, you know. So we see 9-90. If we see 14-86, while the Democrats are also staying consistent, if you're liberal, you're voting yes 95, and if you're moderate, you're voting 65. If we go here to New Jersey, political matters, if you're very liberal, you're voting 98-2 in favor of this was New Jersey, so Mickey Sherrill versus Jack Ciattarelli. If you're somewhat liberal, you're doing 91-8%. That's huge difference. You go to moderate, 62-37. These are big improvements. Now this is where the real disaster for the Republicans go. Somewhat conservative, 13-86. This is where the Republicans need to do a lot better. Because if we go somewhat liberal, 91-8, versus somewhat conservative, you see, and these are same amount of people identifying themselves somewhat liberal versus somewhat conservative. Think about how many more votes the Democrats are winning off of these extra five points that are going to the Democrats here. That's hundreds of thousands of votes. Even in a state like New Jersey, that's at least that got several 10,000, if not 100,000 votes there. That's a huge shift, and that's a huge deal for the Republican Party. That's a huge problem. Even very conservative, you can see very liberal 98-2, very conservative 8-92. So even the very conservative, you can see it's not even close to the very liberal. So a big trend here that we're seeing is Democrats are voting for their candidates on a much higher, even though the vast majority of Republicans are still voting for Republican candidates, the vast majority of Democrats are voting for Democrats on a way bigger level than the vast majority of Republicans are voting for Republicans. And if that is a trend that's continuing, that could be a problem for the Republican Party. Here we're in Virginia, very liberal, 97-3, somewhat liberal, 95-5. And then again, Democrats did very well with the moderate vote. And then you can see these are about the same. These are the same margin again, but as you see, moderate 69-31. Here in Virginia, 15% of somewhat conservative people voted for Spanberger. That is a huge deal. And even with the very conservative 5% to 95%, very conservative Republicans doing better in that category, but they couldn't even outperform the Democrats there. Democrats 3%, 5%, almost double in that sort of sense. Not double total, of course, but double in the sense of people who are not voting for what they should be. Of course, if you just because you're very conservative doesn't mean you have to vote any sort of way, but it is what you are expected, or not expected to vote, but what you are likely to vote. And as you can see, they were doing very poorly. And then the last trend that I want to look at here is we could look at. Sorry, let me find the category. There we go. This category, race. Race. Are you okay? And then, sorry about this. And finally, there, perfect. We can see here in 2024, white people made up 71% of the population, black 11 for Hispanic and Latino, Asian 3%, American Indian 1%, and other being 2. As you can see, Republicans doing really well with white individuals, 15 percentage points. As you can expect, African Americans, the black vote going to Democrats very strongly. But in this exit poll, Hispanic Latino 51 to 46. That is only a 5-point margin in that poll. Asian 55 to 40, only 15 points. American Indian 31 to 68. This exit poll had Trump winning American Indian by, let's see here, 37%, and in other Trump winning that as well. So you can see that a trend that we did see and that has been very noted is how Trump was able to do really well with minorities. As we can see, we could go here to California. White 58. Obviously, this is California, so we're going to see these results being somewhat skewed. But as we're going to go into New Jersey and Virginia, we're going to be able to average it out a little bit from two states that are considerably less liberal. As you can see, even like the Democrats won every single race here in California. That's because California is especially motivated. New Virginia also interesting case because of how many federal workers they have there. So that's also a state that you might expect to do a little better. But New Jersey is going to be the most interesting in these sort of categories. So you can see Democrats winning, white people 16%, African American 91 to 9. So as you can see, black people voting very consistently across both of the probably the most consistently. You see Trump doing a little better, but it's fairly similar to what you might expect. However, you can see Hispanic and Latino 71 to 29. That is a huge difference from what you saw in 2024. Again, apples to oranges, but these are just sort of trends you might that we might see across the other two states, and it might mean something in the long run. Asian 72 to 28, and then for other 47 to 53. So sorry, Democrats did not win every category. The no vote went to the other category. However, we go to New Jersey. So again, this is a race that is affected by government workers. So New Jersey might be the most interesting in this sense. White people 47 to 52. That is 5-point margin. That is very close. That is what you saw Hispanics as, but instead flipped the other way. You saw 52 for Harris and 47 for Trump. You go to black voters again, voting very consistent. They voted sorry, did not mean to click on that. They voted fairly consistent across all these elections. Again, 93, 94. So you can see they voted fairly consistently across all three of these elections. However, we go to Hispanic Latino vote here in New Jersey, 68 to 31. That is a return to around the number that you used to see for Hispanics back in Biden and before. It was about 67-33. In Asian, you saw 82 to 17 and other 54 to 43. So as you see, Democrats are really improving, especially the Hispanics and Latinos were the biggest sort of minority that sort of shifted for Trump here, and we're seeing reversions. We see reversion across all three. Again, 67-33 for Virginia here. And white people for Virginia, 47-53. As I said, black people voting 93 to 7. A most consistent group across all four of these sort of exit polls that we're seeing. Asian Americans voting 80 to 20, and other 65 to 35. So you can also see a shift in the Asian vote too, significantly here, 55 to 40 being in 2024, all the way up to Democrats really running it up with them in all three of these elections. So you can see these sort of reversion from minorities from the Republican Party that is another sort of trend that if it continues for the Republican Party, that could be yet another point of disaster for 2026 for the Republicans if they're not able to keep. They need minorities in this coalition here, and it's expected that. It's not that Hispanics are going to be continuing to vote Republican. That is just because recently there's been sort of a merge, or not a merge. There's been people tend to vote more for their party rather than, or not their party. They tend to vote either conservative or liberal, and in the past that was not always the case. So you see more conservative voters voting Republican, more liberal voters voting Democrat, and that is a trend that has been continuing, and that is resulting in Hispanics voting for Republicans a lot more than they used to, and that is a trend that has continued. But you could see a reversion here, and this was a blue wave, so you could see that it reverted almost back to percentage that you used to see. And if 2026 continues being in, if it is in Democrats' favor, this would really hurt Republicans in those sorts of, not in those sorts, but in that, in the case of that. And so at the end of this video, sorry it's been going on for so long, holy cow, 30-minute video. I just want to go over these new maps that you might see. As you can see, it really, well, we can go down here. We can see the changes in these districts here. You see here up in District 1, it would, so this is, let's see here. So this is the new district. This is the old district here. You can see it cuts out a lot of this more Republican area, takes in a couple of more cities, and gets down into the Southern California. Gets this more Democratic voters, as I said, encompass more Democratic voters, removing Republican North State constituents. District 3, it's over here. So as you can see, old District 3 used to stretch all the way down, cover this whole, a lot of this more rural area out near Nevada, and it used to be a Republican district. However, they really cut out a lot of these Republican areas and made it more of a vote safe for Carson City. Again, redrawn to see includes parts of Sacramento County and removed. So that's down over here, leaning into this more Democratic voting area and removing all this Republican areas sort of here. As you see here, District 22, it encompasses many parts of the current district, but now stretches into Fresno County. So this comes up here and grabs a lot of this Democratic voting area up here, cutting out parts of Bakersfield down here, and but it largely remains the same. However, it adds this Democratic area here that will shift this district far more into Democratic hands. As we see here, District 41, completely different district. This is redrawn congressional district in Riverside County. You remember Riverside County earlier is getting replaced by a district here in Los Angeles. Riverside, as you can see here, back in 2024, did vote for, voted for, Riverside over here, voted for Trump. So they just decided to switch that district over here, over to Anaheim, over there. And then finally for District 48, they added up into this Palm Springs area, getting into Hemet, up in this sort of area here, all the way to Indio over here, and cutting out a lot of this area. As I said, redrawn congressional district cover East County, San Diego, pick up Palm Springs, and others chart, while other parts shift to nearby Democrats. So yes, they're cutting out they're adding in this big Democratic area over here, cutting out some of the other Republican areas here to make these districts all more Republican. And this is the final map that they are going to be going with. So this is now going to be the map that we are going to be seeing from 2025 up until 2030, which is when the Independent Commission will be brought back as of what has been put forth in Prop 50. Love it or hate it or being somewhere in between. I'm not here to discuss sort of what I think about this redistricting thing. I just wanted to go over a lot of these more interesting results that we might see, that we saw in these three. We mostly going over this election, but we also saw in the trends continue into New Jersey and Virginia, being you saw Republican voters voting blue, and you saw minorities shifting back to what they were, and big difference from the 2024 election, as was demonstrated. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video. Sorry it was a very long video, but I just wanted to break down a lot of these trends that we are seeing in the exit polls, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.